Okay, y'all. This could be a juicy one because you know how I said in the past I would do something of a new moon reading as the last new moon, and it had that same template. I did it, but I kind of just I didn't write the notes in a summary format. I just wrote kind of like bullet point notes, but it's the same format. And there's also a different side expression that because I'm looking at a chart and I'm going to read the chart. I'm going to read the point notes, and but I'm not showing any of the charts, but the chart that I'm reading off of was the same template as the last new moon reading I did. So I'm leaning towards just kind of an intuitive expression while seeing these notes, seeing the notes of the new moon. Because what I'm seeing in the new moon, it's just kind of like, there's many different things to look out for, obviously. And the different things to look out for is, however you want to classify something as within the seasons of Earth and the sun and the moon traveling through a certain section through the other planets, and the other planets being their own funnels, and those different funnels are ultimately making their own energetic collage to ultimately go through a different, tunnel, which is also the tunnel is the celestial object, because the celestial objects that go through the space, they're just micro parts of God, because we have to start this conversation off as seeing how there's an underlying paradox, how the paradox is there's infinite differentiation, but there's also a oneness to it, and in between those lines of the oneness and the infinite differentiation is just your differentiation streams, and how other things and objects could be like solidified as a unique individuation of an energy object, because anything could be individuated: a blade of grass, a fence, a tree, sand, water, fire. These are individual things. So the individuation process, it's with the humans, and it's more than the humans. It's everything other than that, and everything other than that, it's infinite differentiation. So within that infinite differentiation, that's something of a mutable aspect. There's something that could be mutated. The elements are being mutated. We're being mutated. But with it in between the mutableness of ourselves and our nature, our clay self, shout out to Vedanta, we're moving through different temperaments of a cardinal energy and a fixed energy, of how the fixed energy is kind of like putting them in the analytic, logistic type of table, where things are kind of getting accounted for within the logistics and the accountings and the analytics of just the details of things, and the technical codes of the technicality mainframe software systems. That's the fixed aspect of things. Things are more like kind of like logged in, and the cardinal energy is going back to something of a source energy, because there's mutable energy, there's cardinal energy, and then there's fixed energy, obviously. And within that, different celestial objects are coming out of that temperament, of how the elements are also related to the different modes of the elements. So in between the paradox of it's all one, it's all connected, but then there's infinite differentiation. What's coming out is some type of stream of from like this combination of a cardinal fixed going towards a different cardinal fixed, and in between is like the mutable and all the other stuff, and that's how to like kind of break down time too, because obviously there's, shout out to the predecessors. There's people that are transcending time, and we can only hope to reach that level more or less individually, or maybe collectively within the harmonics that are already there within other tribes, like other, brothers and sisters and elsewhere that think of us as soul tribe. That they will be on your path if there could be a mutual kind of like yearning, to put it most spiritually, because like we gotta want to build our stuff with people we could care about, or we could love, or we could resonate, see eye to eye to, not just the mutual respect, but the mutual intelligence. So, and out of these things, it's we're just seeing how within how there's a niche funnel within how all the planets are in some type of solar system, and that solar system also has the next level of the planets, the macro planets, something of the universal Mercury and all the other universal planets. So there's like a solar system tier of the planets to the universal tier system of the planets, and within those planets are kind of making the encasement of the higher dimension and the lower dimension under it, and within the higher dimension and the lower dimension under the encasement and above the encasement, those are the spaces in between spaces that are making the niche realities of the seasons themselves, of how we're going in some type of procession where, this one container has 4 different seasons, quote unquote, end quote, and like more or less within that. And within that, certain celestial objects on a different proxy parallel level, on a different proxy level that's parallel to the same thing, to the all is one, the cardinal, to the in between transition, that mutable, and then the quote unquote fine-tuned differentiation of infinite differentiation, the fixed aspect. And within all of those different aspects, we're working with all of those elements, riding on the fixed elements of how things have been kind of like, metaphysically, esoterically, energetically manufacturalized to actually be its own piece of an individuation, building block of its own new thing, to build with infinite other elements, to ultimately make the essence of evolution and the essence of mutation, is to see how the soul is adapting to the macro fixed, to how the soul is adapting to the macro mutable, and how the soul is adapting to the macro cardinal. This is the beyond essence of mutation, and this is the beyond essence of evolution, respectively. And within that, we're the soul on the universal level with the universal level of the planets. That's the ultimate, that's beyond the North Node, that's beyond this whole astrology, but it's still with it, because we're still catering to its seasons and temperaments and what it's giving us, as far as what we're detailing as how we're riding through these seasons and temperaments since 2,000 years ago till now. And it's a different type of in the now. So within that, we're on something of a fixed level and a mutable level of how we're in a particular space within a space within a space, and that particular space within the space within the space, it's a micro solar system. Earth is the micro solar system, and within Earth being the micro solar system, Earth is traveling and relating to different celestial objects that have, created a new solidification temperament of that celestial object to ultimately create a house and a space. Because you could say the planet and the constellation, in a different level, they're one and the same, but the planet is more of the yang and the constellation is more of the yin. And when the constellation and the planet are together, it's a unique yin and yang of that, element. So within that element may ultimately becomes conscious intelligence over different processions of different eons before the solar system, to make the planets for what they even are and what they're symbolizing to be within how that piece of the solar system, all the celestial objects making, something of a sub galaxy. Ultimately, that's all of these pieces, they're simultaneously representing something, and they're upholding their own space of energy within their own self-created elemental temperament. And within that elemental temperament, we're using those energies of how the planet and the constellation is in itself, fixed, coming out of something that's cardinal, and altogether the new the ever-passing unison of things. That's the mutability of how just different collisions could happen, from how these different temperaments of solidified elements are close together or far apart together within whatever season they're ultimately landing in the solar system of things. Because in the solar system of things, the solar system is it's it's not just yang, you know, there's a yin solar system, and within that yin solar system, it's that's something that shares the principle of mutability, because the mutability of energies and different mutations of different elements, they're also riding through a space of nothingness. So it's like there's also a new mode, there's a hidden mode, there's cardinal, there's mutable, there's fixed, and then the fourth mode would be the nothingness, respectively. And within that, the mutable is akin to that, because it's also, if it's changing within everything, it's also kind of pointing to some type of vacuum field, or quote unquote chaos field, end quote. So the mutables of energies we're on a, and that's like that's one whole new different context of the subconscious, of how the subconscious is also something of like kind of a deep transformation of quote unquote nothingness, end quote. And in between that nothingness and everything else, that's a part of the subconsciousness. So within the solar system, that being one body, that body is like a daughter of the father, and the solar system is the daughter of the father, because the daughter is the womb aspect in one different tier that's hosting all of its kids. It's a micro daughter. The solar system is a micro daughter from the universal father, and that universal father somehow kind of created that micro daughter, and he's still feeling that micro daughter. He's quote unquote metaphysically impregnating her, end quote, to create all the different celestial objects, all the planets to be what they are, all the planets being the quote unquote kids from the different divine feminines, the different contexts of the different divine feminines from the original universal fathers. Because, and the different contexts of the divine feminine is, you know, within the feminine solar system being something of a yin field. It's not just that, you know, the feminine solar system could go before and after the masculine solar system. And what that means is, that means there's different types of like feminine, divine feminine, goddesses, like kind of like pretty much already elemental goddesses, you know. And within these elemental goddesses, they're before the masculine celestial objects. And then the masculine celestial objects, they're paradoxically their own feminine self. And within the celestial objects being quote unquote masculine, even though they could have a feminine energy to them, that masculine celestial object could receive some type of different energy facet of a feminine womb energy, the space of the energy, the space in where the celestial objects lie in a certain feminine ocean. And that feminine ocean paradoxically is impregnating the material masculine physical celestial objects, so they could create new stuff. So that masculine celestial object, not that could simultaneously be feminine and masculine, they're also like, they're creating stuff too, which is the humans themselves. And the humans themselves, we're being created from some certain level of the celestial objects. In one context, you could call them archons, but that's just one little baby title of them, because they're more than just that, because they themselves, they have their own little, or to not little, multidimensionality. So within all of that, there's, after the material celestial objects that are masculine, they could create new physical daughters or physical feminine species, not just humans. So within all of that, I'm pretty much just saying, like, I'm trying to just explain the celestial objects in the solar system, the microplanets, and those microplanets eventually having a universal aspect, you know. You could call you could say like universal Mars or whatever. You could say like universal Venus or whatever. You could say like universal Jupiter or whatever, you know, something like that. And those particular planets in that order, they ultimately hold some significant key code within the reality. Because why is that? A planet could also symbolize a certain number, like some type of completion. So what Mars really is, it's this will to like kind of be a new, pretty much, because Mars is so many different things, you know. You could say Mars is just like, you know, some type of just like will to live, you know. And obviously it's not just that, but there's some type of will just to be yourself, a deep yearning of energy to like kind of be different from the soul tribe, but still recognizing the soul tribe as paradoxically that soul individuation, God's source, is everything. So Mars and Uranus, there's like some type of paradox there because they're their own different types of individuation. So Mars is kind of like this like final individuation. That's what Mars is. It's like this final individuation, and to clarify itself and how it's being first of itself, being first of it naturally did that first to become what that energy is. Mars being the first of you, being the first of your individuation of yourself, being a one of your kind, or finding some type of unique wholeness within how there's niche agencies, niche agencies of like even like just like quote unquote archetypes, end quote. And that's like kind of vague too, because archetypes, that can mean so many different things. We're all, kind of like relating to like the predecessors' stories and narratives, and how they have like some different archetype that they already kind of like influence. But I don't want to get sidetracked with that, So this is like the fixed thing, the tech thing, that's the fixed thing. The tech thing, this fixed thing, we're eventually maturely and spiritually bridging it, which has always been though, but like really like holistically doing it in balance. And I'm just saying it for a balanced non-duality aspect of it, because I'm actually really in my own now, within my own element, communicating the wind. That's who I am. That's what I am within my human. And that human has to like be transformed to however, the human design body graph. It's something of a masculine aspect of the new human code. And that new human code, the human design body graph, is saying so many different things. But there's this heart chakra theme going on. Let me look at my notes, because right when I said that, so eventually, yeah, we're going past the eventually, in somehow after this life, this level of whatever the human design body graph human code is saying, eventually that will be transcended too, though. That's what I'm saying. So what the human design body graph is, it's something of the new masculine technical code, and what the astrology is within and hidden within the human design body graph is your astrological natal, admin cadmin chart alignment reading, which is, inclusive within the human design body graph because it's integrated in it behind the scenes. But if you were to take human design out and look at the chart within just your natal chart, your natal chart would say you're like something of a feminine astrological body, end quote, meaning where your houses are, because human design, it doesn't necessarily like talk about the houses too much, although they can, but they don't necessarily do so, because like the where the planets are in your houses, that's more of like a feminine dream body. And your human design body graph, that's more of a technical human code physical chart. But I understand how like, the astrology reading is hidden and integrated within the human design body graph technical human code reading. I understand that part, and how that human code has been influenced in a technical way within the technical solar system, the niche advanced fixed solar system, of how the human design body graph is actually reading also the natal transitions within the neutrino ocean to the solar system, to this planet, and how it relates to the solar system. And it has its own and that solar system, that planet Earth, in its own unique, Trinity aspect need. It has a moon and a sun to oppose it, to bring light to some type of Earth dark field, because the Earth is also a unique physical daughter of the solar system. And then the moon is just kind of like something of you could say the moon is like, could be something of like a new dream body of the earth, more or less, but not necessarily. And that dream body has an energy of everyone's energy collected together. And the earth, and the moon is kind of also like it's kind of the womb to the earth, you could say, in one casual aspect, but it not exactly so, like not literally so, and like that. So like so Mars is kind of like he's misunderstood, you know. He's misunderstood because he knows the ways of the ego. He's been in the game. He's been in the game so long that he is instating himself to oversee some type of unique human development, you know. And that unique human development, Mercury being in Aries, we're having like, this is the super soldier. Mercury in Aries is the super soldier. Why do I say Mercury in Aries is the super soldier? The 6th house, Mercury is bringing his 6th house resemblance to the 1st house. So Mercury is his way on how to keep one's health going and communicative. He's bringing the health to Aries. Mercury is in Aries, so Mercury is like really like kind of getting the scoop on how it could apply the Aries, the Mars's house to Mercury, because Mercury is in Aries. So that's the super soldier. And my notes are really saving me here because I'm looking at the template that I drew up. Oh, and maybe you could see it. Oh shit. And so this is like and ultimately, like, even though I wrote it in a certain order, somehow I put them, like, if you were to see the chart, and obviously, like, I might have to get a Cash App just because that's how it goes, or maybe like I could, like, you know, sell something, right? Get some type of, like, you know, casual assistant to help me make the sale, if that particular person is even like cognition enough to know a real opportunity without, you know, any type of, you know, rhetoric or hype behind it. But let me get back to this reading, like, just to actually, like, make the thing, you know. So I'm just doing this because, like, I'm just, like, working with the predecessors. This has been a group project for a while, so I'm like, I don't have any shame sharing this. The human design, in its technicality code, it's asking for shit to be shared and expressed. That's, like, the whole point within, like, the collaboration in of the ecosystem of life, is to actually share and express your shit. And human design is low-key on its own collective level. That's what it's fucking asking for, low-key. So on a technical level, Mars is obviously a parent within this whole code. So if Mars is a parent in this whole code, he was like the finished product of things, you know. Aries, 1st house, that's the finished product. So we're kind of matching the exaltation of the 1st house, the sun, exemplifies the 1st house and the 5th house. We're kind of like the inner child and the parent. They're kind of like one and the same, kind of, you know. The sun, 1st house and 5th house, you know. So within the 5th house and the 1st house, it's like there's a process of, like, becoming an adult, you know. But, like, your destiny is like, that has to deal with, like, you know, more than just the planets on their own, you know. It's seeing how they kind of all, like, they influence something on a different as above plane, you know, around the solar system, and now we're receiving that in the 3D waking reality. So you know, so I don't have a problem, like, sharing this because, first of all, human design is asking for it. Second of all, I'm just lucky enough to have been influenced by the predecessor stuff. Third of all, the predecessors are in their own real now mission, aside from anybody claiming being in the now, because that now is subjective to you. and you're still kind of like ignoring stuff for like an intelligent reason or a not intelligent reason. So let me get back to the notes here. Line 4, the 6 lines, of the hexagram, the 6 lines of a gate. Line 4, you could say less is more, but what less? There's different types of less, because like within the yin and yang of ourselves, sometimes, more comes into the less. And within the yin yin, the yin yang, and the yang yang, and the yang yin of the penta and the wa, the yin of the penta and the wa, that's the potential and how we come together, Like, what are we creating within the space? What do we create? What's the potential creation in the space? The yin of the penta and the wa. And the yin yin of the penta and the wa, that's from the dream realm. So from the dream realm, and how there's a new potential in the 3D realm, that's the yin yin of the potential of the penta and the wa, some human design terminology. And then the yin yang of the penta and the wa is like how we're being stimulated, how we're moving with that. And the yang yang of the penta and the wa is just what we're standing on, how the human beings are coming together on the physical places. And then the yang yin of the penta and the wa is how we're just kind of like depositing, stuff into, whatever the mainframe really is, and how you could say the penta and the wa is somehow even like, in unique ways connected to like Saturn, but not necessarily just Saturn. It's connected to all of them, because all the planets are kind of like, they're all the planets too, because they have relationships with each other. So within that, the yin penta and the yin wa is seeing, what we're bringing back to the dream world, kind of, or what we're possibly like, creating when we come together. So I honestly, intuitively, I was like literally like on a general mature level, I was the first to just say that shit right there but like, mind you, star note, genuine, star note, mature, like and like legitimately, genuinely, maturely, and legitimately. That's what I'm saying with how there's a certain thing that was professed first, genuinely, and I'm just saying it, and like, and Mars could like, ironically be, representing and the key holder for that, representing what was first of, the inner Mars, of just how the Mars has a unique influence since, 56,000 years ago. And I don't know why I go back to 56,000 years ago, but it just feels like an appropriate marker, because to after what happens 112,000 years ago. But anyways, so the shocks of life, there's many shocks of life based on how we just come to exist, how the fish comes to be born out of something of like, a grand fish, and how we're just kind of like unique to a new circumstance, the shocks of life. Because Mars is in Pisces, Saturn is in Pisces, and Neptune is in Pisces. And in human design, Neptune has been in gate 36, and gate 36 has the keynote theme of crisis or darkening of the light, one of those two. Or Pisces has the I Ching gates, because the Pisces constellation in human design, it has certain 4 I Ching gates, and within those 4 I Ching gates, those different I Ching gates have themes. So Neptune is in gate 36, and I believe it's one of the two. It's crisis or darkening the light. So it's like, it's the crisis just to like how like the moods and our emotions are always changing. Pisces, moods and emotions always changing, but we don't have to let that get the best of us. We don't have to have leaks in our aura, you know. We could adapt to the emotions. We could adapt to the emotions of life. We could adapt to the moods of life. But like being a little keynote sensitive, Pisces being sensitive just to how things are always moving, you know, Neptune and Pisces. Neptune, like, you know, kind of being the chief of, like, you know, just seeing the background media publication of life. Neptune, you could say, is just like, you know, the deep intelligence, you know, or whatever. You could say Neptune is that, you know. And then the matrix, the carrier, the celestial object that is like the matrix of itself, Saturn being a different planet that's uniquely plugged into the Earth, because all the planets have a unique plug into the Earth, and Saturn's realm that's uniquely plugged into the Earth. How Saturn is in the Earth, that is that's the simulation projector. So the simulation projector is within Earth. So Saturn and Earth, let's see that aspect. Earth is in Libra, Saturn is in Pisces. So Libra and Pisces, that's like 7th house and 12th house. So that's, I think, I don't know what that aspect is called, but I believe that's like 150 degrees away, right? So within 150, it's kind of like an abstract gate, you know, the 7th house and the 12th house, something of an adrenal kind of nature to survive, 7th house. And then the 12th house, some type of, you know, we're standing on like the predecessor's evolution, 12th house. We're standing on the energy of like how the predecessors have moved. And maybe you can see the chart. And if you can see the chart, kudos, because then you can see what I'm ultimately like kind of working with. And you might be able to see the chart. I'm just on a lunch break right now, and I'm just kind of doing this, you know. I said I would do this, and it's not as like fancily written up as the last one. I'm just kind of intuitively doing it, you know, because if you catch my last new moon reading, you would see that it was a different style. It was a little more like, it was a little more rigid. I don't want to say crunchadocious because that's not even a word. But I said it, crunchadocious. But anyways, you might be able to see the chart is what I'm saying. And within the chart, there's notes, which I didn't want to show the way I took notes. And then there's the chart itself. So within the chart itself, I kind of started off as like a 9, a 6, and a 3, you know. And within that, that's like a Fibonacci that's like a low-key Fibonacci sequence within the solar system, because Venus is a 6, you know, and Saturn is also a 6 in their own esoteric plane. So Venus and Saturn, that's like because Venus is the feminine surface level material post matrix. It's like this pleasure matrix. So, but like Venus is connecting to a natural Fibonacci sequence, because Venus is in one casual astrology terminology is the 6, and then in other, you know, just in other aspects of learning, Venus also relates to the Fibonacci sequence. So as she's doing it, she's ultimately like, you know, kind of being like a unique mother for the humans itself. So Venus, Anana, being her own multidimensional self, she's also a unique mother for like how she is relating to this Earth mother, which the Earth is a paradox of, you know, being the final daughter, and then Venus kind of being the older sister, or like some type of older, like, you know, ancient, like kind of like empress, and then the Earth being some type of princess. But paradoxically, you know, maybe it's both, you know. And within that, somehow their code, the 9 and the 6 and the 3, Mars, Venus, and Jupiter, somehow they make you could say that they make some type of like quote unquote free energy, end quote, because within, you know, shout out to Mark Rodin for like introducing this to the reality, but within his concept of vortex mathematics, is like kind of like following up and kind of refining what, like, you know, quote unquote Nikola Tesla was saying, end quote, if that's even accurate, because I've seen some like files and archives where like some people say like
Tesla was like a black person, or Tesla didn't even exist. But forget I said that. Like, just following up on, like, what did Tesla mean? And, those don't have to necessarily be true, but what did Tesla mean when he used 3, 6, and 9? When he was using 3, 6, and 9, 6 was the Fibonacci, feminine, and, and just kind of like, and kind of something like physical, right? Three being kind of just like a basic like fire circuit, some type of circuit. Three, some type of 2D fire, a triangle, two-dimensional fire. So that's three is some type of like, kind of like spark code, like, and somehow Jupiter is three. So Jupiter is like the overseer to, like, the ocean of fire somehow. Jupiter, maybe you could say, is like some god of fire, mutable fire, the changing fires. And the mutable is just as important as the cardinal and fixed, because it's the transition of it too. So it's not that cardinal, they're all interrelated. So within, like, Jupiter somehow being the 3, some fire circuit, Venus being the 6, some Fibonacci circuit, and Mars being the 9, some type of like multiplication of, or some type of fusion of recognizing how Jupiter and this new creation of Venus after Jupiter's story, in between or around that, somehow Mars meets Venus in a unique epilogue narrative. And within that epilogue narrative, eventually within the solar system, whenever, like, it was kind of like reintroduced and reinstated 50,000 years ago, whenever the astrology started, Mars aligned with 9, Venus aligned with 6, and Jupiter aligned with 3. And eventually they themselves together within a certain mutable reality, or whatever, some type of, circuit of reality, they made some type of vortex field within how 3, 6, and 9 could also have, like, a collaboration of, like, the celestial beings, and the celestial beings, them being the material celestial objects, and then them having their own universal aspects beyond the constellation within the solar system and after the solar system. Ultimately, them having like a galaxy solar system and a galaxy aspect of them. Galaxy Mars, or Galactic Mars, Galactic Venus, and Galactic Jupiter. And within that, if you see the chart that I wrote down within this new moon reading, I started off with Mars, but I should have started off with the sun, So it's the Mars and sun, and then it's, the order that it is, because Aries is like kind of representing and housing the energy of kind of contributing to this new picture of how something is being kind of like finished within a human creation. There's some type of finish. Mars is like the chief to finish some type of part within using the sun and kind of going beyond the sun in its own, celestial ambitions. And within these celestial ambitions, it kind of goes in and out of the sun, because the sun is like the collective ego and the collective action, and the collective, like, response to taste. The sun, we respond to what we see. The sun is, you could even say the sun is like some type of response to taste. So the first house is exalting, like, your taste is ultimately based on how you're created, what your temperament is, what your first house is, or where your first house Aries constellation, how that Aries constellation that is bringing, like, the feminine first house to whatever house you have Aries in. And whatever house you have Aries in, that's the part of your life where where you're kind of like finishing your product of your human evolution based on what your temperament is. So you're finishing your evolution, and how your Aries constellation, wherever your constellation is, you're kind of like that's where you're here to finish evolution. So I might as well do Aries through the houses casually, intuitively. I could do it right now. Like your first house Aries is like you're finishing the product of your evolution towards like the grander solar system self. Second house Aries is like you're finishing the product and of your spirit evolution in something of like the tech field, respectively. Second house tech field, respectively. Third house, you're finishing the product of just kind of being a messenger. Third house Aries, you're like the messenger. Fourth house Aries, you're kind of bringing it to like some type of like sociology, familyhood kind of thing. You know, some father mother kind of even like relationship counsel, or bringing families mediator type of stuff. Fourth house Aries. Fifth house Aries, maybe some type of childcare, maybe some type of creative project, maybe some type of even movie, you know. Fifth house Aries. Sixth house Aries is kind of maybe being like finishing the product to like the holistic medicine realm, or just health, or being even a doctor. Sixth house Aries. Seventh house Aries being radically, you know, evolutionary within the change of like Venus in the solar system, and how Venus makes all these crazy agencies in between Earth and all the other planets, being the pleasure outlet agency. So seventh house Aries would be kind of like, you know, even being erotic, maybe, or maybe being very passionate and very just energetic. You know, seventh house dealing with change, adrenals. Seventh house in human design, Libra is all about, or not even just human design, but in like there's a keynote within the change of evolution within like the quote unquote Libra constellation, end quote, in an HD aspect version. So Aries in the seventh house may be kind of like finishing the product of just kind of like, you know, helping like the pleasure agency, or even like maybe even something other erotic, some crazy combination, you know, because the seventh house could get tricky, you know. The seventh house is like bringing a unique type of survival life outlet. That's what kind of Libra does, because Libra's in human design is pointing towards like the spleen chakra, the survival chakra. And there's also the I Ching gates, are they're the keynotes of the change of evolution. Seventh house starting off the second semester, 2 seasons, seventh house through the 12th house, seventh house being the kicker to the 12th house. So seventh house Aries would be something of like just a unique experiment, you know, all the air signs being something of a unique experiment. And those air signs, you know, change, communication, messenger, and from the change in the communication makes some type of rocket experiment. So Aries in the 11th house would probably be some type of unique, you know, unique even like some type of like Aquarius is like such a paradox, because it's trying to interrelate, like, you know, in between Capricorn and Pisces and Aries and Sag, you know, it's in between those. So Aries in the 11th house, it would be something like it would be like receiving some type of product after it kind of like came out of like a 7th house and a 3rd house. It would have gotten all the details, the communication. Like the fixed air is receiving the mutable air, the communication details, and the drop. Somehow Aquarius got the drop. And then also Aquarius is also like just it being quote unquote energetically stubborn and fixed, end quote. It could be kind of elusive to naturally to Libra, and like, you know, and kind of just, you know, as it is to like just everything else, you know. So within that, it could be leaning on Libra on like, how are we going to make it through this change, right? You know, Libra kind of, perhaps if you're a higher octave one, being more adaptable to change, you know. So 7th house Aries would be kind of like finishing the product to like starting and finishing the mission. Aries in the 7th house, starting and finishing the mission. Aries in the 8th house, finishing the product to like, you know, some tantric project, you know, and seeing, you know, how there's a casual warfare and a death process within that on a natural narrative, warfare and death. 8th house Scorpio to some type of tantric experiment project, or extreme in how humans are used in different extreme cases. Aries in the 8th house, and perhaps healing that, or perhaps being like, something, maybe Aries 8th house, you could be a psycho, I'm just saying it's a possibility. I'm not all these readings. It's not necessarily like that's what it is. And for me to caution that note, wow, Aries in the 9th house being kind of like a unique diplomacy, finishing the project of like, kind of bringing the family together. Something, because I look at Sagittarius as I look at Jupiter as like kind of like, a unique tradition, a unique kind of like, ritual, right? So like Aries in the 9th house kind of like, maybe being like a unique mage or a wizard respectively. And obviously we could like, we could just learn from Aries. Aries is we're all the zodiac signs for the millionth time. So it's, if you're new to astrology, you don't have to just say I'm the sun sign, because the sun sign falls within any of the 12 houses. So we could see things, we could act and see the same thing, but how we do it is totally different. And how that aspects with, our Mars, which they're closely related because Mars goes in and out of the sun. We could go how the sun aspects with our Mars and Mercury. We could act on certain things differently, passionately, and we could think about different things. And then the sun being in a different, because we're the same sign, and then we could like, we could transfigure and transform that sun based on what house it's in. So not any of the sun signs are the same. Aries in the 9th house. So, and then Aries in the 9th house, it could follow up on that, like, something of like, kind of like balancing all the religions, Aries in the 9th house could be some type of prophet. And I can't believe I'm doing 8 Aries to the houses, but I'm just doing them, So this is the NHD new moon reading that I said I would do. And it's a more intuitive spiel, and it's Aries through the houses. So it's 2 videos. So, and then Aries through the 10th house, that would be kind of like, you could say the 10th house is like, kind of like the bearings to the matrix, some type of like some type of deep technician, right? To how we're all, some of us are more bigger cogs in the machine to the matrix than others, and finishing the product of like seeing how the technicalities of the matrix could be adjusted. Aries in the 10th house. And just maybe like bringing like being a wave of like manufacturing change, Aries in the 10th house. Being a wave of material change, Aries in the 10th house. Aries in the 11th house, I already went over that, maybe being like, someone who like, might push a button or something. Pinky and brain is coming to the table. Aries in the 11th house. And then Aries in the 12th house, ascending to like that that could be looked at as casual ascension, seeing what the hype is all about, where is this 12th house, where is this Neptunian, Jupiterian, ancient, deep original brotherhood coming from, finishing the product to like, the bloodlines, Aries in the 12th house being like something of like the prophet, ascending. So that was Aries through the houses, and Mars is in Pisces right now. So this is like, this is like the human ascension is like, it's like something else, it's like, it's such a Aries in the 12th house. It's like, it's finishing the product to like where all of this is coming from. It's emergence. The yin and yang and the paradox of emergence. Mars in Pisces. Seeing how Saturn in Pisces, within the solar system, the matrix itself, the matrix programming and the finishing product of Mars, they're going towards the depth of Neptune, this Brahma Loka. We're going towards like, we're seeing how Brahma Loka is hosting the Earth's Matrix simulator program, Saturn, and that Saturn Matrix is receiving Neptune's influence of Brahma Loka, a high material heaven, the spiritual matrix, I mean the physical matrix, Saturn, or well, Saturn is, its own unique, dream matrix and physical matrix, different matrices. That matrix is in a unique material heaven. Saturn and Neptune and Mars are in Pisces. So within that, this is like, it's not just the super soldier, it's also super creation, because Saturn is in the house of Neptune, with Neptune there. So it's like this is mass media. This is mass juiced out news. Mars like kind of like knowing more or less it all, initiating yourself to like just a little bit of everything. Mars doing that casually, initiating yourself into everything pretty much, because that's what Mars do. This simulator matrix, the Saturn, it's in it's being influenced by how the spiritual predecessors are raising the human evolution, and within that, the changing matrix, the unique Saturn, is getting the scoop out of that. And as it's aspecting and doing and it having a backlog story within the planets, Uranus is also having a unique fusion with Saturn to like have Uranus's track record being unraveled throughout the years, and how it had a unique suppression, and the unsuppression of Uranus is creating on a different as above dream level a unique type of change and transformation. I don't want to say like chaos, but some would like misinterpret that to be so, because I think it's just bringing in like a certain depth of like let me see, what did my other notes say. Let me see, what did I put down, because like I did another page and I wrote a certain note for this one. Let me see. Okay, oh yeah, so it's bringing in a rebirth. There's a rebirth. So Uranus is like, spiritual sovereignty. That spiritual sovereignty was like away from us, and somehow on a different as above level, it's coming towards us. And that whole energy, in some instance, it it collided with a different narrative for Saturn to have a complete overhaul of the matrix itself. And that matrix itself, these celestial objects, they have a different narrative. And let me read the other notes. So within that, we could have a natural competition towards things of just trying to be ourselves, and just how the competition on different shadow levels, it could be taken out of like, it could be kind of exaggerated, because there's two different types of competition, from the human having an ego that's conditioned to a superficiality, to it just only use the logical brain, and it be completely unaware of all kinds of other shit. And since it's in a unique mode of thinking, its approach of competition is totally different from how people could have a friendly competition. So there's two different types of competition. So the different competitions is, it originally arises out of a natural competition, but for our superficial ego that's conditioned makes it in a whole different context of a competition. So there's two different types of competition. The sun being in the gate that it is, it's pointing to, it's in a heart chakra gate. So it's in the human heart code. So we're having action plan to have a new human heart, and how we're going to program ourselves to like, will ourselves to be ourselves. The heart chakra, Mars, will ourselves to come out of the soul. Everything's in reverse. The material human, or the material physical angel, or the material human creation specimen is coming out of the soul field, the will to live, this heart chakra, will ego center, this will to live. And the heart, the new moon, and the new being in a human design heart chakra, that heart chakra gate, it's pointing to the G center. And what the G center is, it's you could look at the G center also as a soul council. So the human will, or some type of physical will of you, a different creature of yourself, it's also pointing towards like the soul council. Because in human design, I look at the G center as the soul council. I wrote down this other note. I'll save that for a different one. We all kind of survive differently, but we all survive nonetheless. Mars could have themes of survival, but not necessarily. I would look at Venus as some type of survival, because the paradox is, when we chase after pleasure, we also have to make an energy sacrifice. So Venus could be aware of that shit, and that's Venus's like her general task. We also have to do some type of tilling, the work. Venus has to do some type of cow tilling, and do work to fix and maintain a certain part of the after product of Saturn's matrix, Venus and Saturn, the different sixes, the masculine and feminine six, Venus and Saturn. So we all survive differently, but nonetheless, we all need to survive, because I wrote a lot of different notes down. And then see the conjunctions, obviously, the shocks of life, Neptune being in crisis, or in an I Ching gate, that could point to themes of crisis. We could be like kind of just shocked. We don't have to focus on just being distraught of we don't have to look at it how we're looking at it, like kind of like, we don't have to let the ego get the best of us, and just like kind of being like, it just doesn't have to be thought of so narrowly as like, this is what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. No, it's working with like whatever the fuck the predecessors really are, and however the fuck the predecessors are still alive, and they're working with nature on like so many different as above levels. So this new moon is about becoming braver and becoming more resilient, because Mars just has themes just to do the willpower to that, adapt, go to the challenge. And as we respond to the challenge, we're going to need some type of resiliency. And there is another reason why I wrote down resiliency as well. So the title of this video, it would probably be, Negentropic Human Design Astrology New Moon Special, just like the, Aries New Moon. And then casually, somehow I got through Aries through the houses, and I'm still ripping because I'm looking at the notes. And there's some notes I'm like not speaking of because I'm going to save for a different, video. And there's also another way I written it up that I didn't show. But I kind of just within this order and how I wrote it up, I put like Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and then I went to Pluto, and then I went to 11, 10, and then to 1 to North Node. So I put 963 first, Mars, Venus, and Jupiter. And I put 963 first because Aries is Mars's house. So 963, but that's for the guys. If you're a girl, it's 693, and it's 693 because girls respond to like the Venus aspect first of themselves, and then after the 6 of their Venus selves, then they find out that some people are fighting for them, fighting for how there's a Mars energy that wants to kind of like claim them, conquer them, or whatever, something's fighting for their snoochie. I'm sorry, I had to say it. So like I put 963 for guys, 693 for girls, because if you look at my last new moon, just look at the picture of how it, and because you might not be able to see the picture, but I put 9630, and then I went from like top to bottom pretty much. So I put Mars and Venus and Jupiter. So how Mars and Venus is aspecting, it's 12th and 1st house. It's like the threshold of like the gods and the humans Pisces to Aries. So there's this relationship, there's this love of life, there's this love of like reverence for the quote unquote, benevolent original predecessors, end quote. And from that, there's been unique romances that could come out of that, just the experiments that come out of that. And there's reverence here. There's passion for the reverence of the predecessors. Mars being in Pisces, Venus being in Aries, and Jupiter being in Taurus, expanding, pretty much how the planets have their own track records through them creating stuff with the other planets. And Jupiter and Uranus being in Taurus, we've already been used to like the revelations that came out 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, that it's been being built upon, and now Jupiter has come to like have his, expansion energy and his ritual energy to be in Taurus, some type of, technical energy. So now we're kind of having like this expansion of just how we're like, some people are using technology as a religion, Jupiter and Taurus. And these innovations have came in like whenever Jupiter and Uranus were in Taurus, 2.5 years ago, or whenever it really happened, and Pluto is still in Capricorn, about to go to Aquarius. So after discussing what Aquarius is, Pluto's extreme experiments, Pluto's extreme transformation within this whole crazy fucking experiment, So when Pluto, somehow that transformation beacon goes into Aquarius, something is going to pop off, and only like, the as above levels really know what's going to happen. And shout out to like, anybody's etiology, and somehow people can predict the future, and that's already known. I'm just sharing what's already been known. So Pluto's in Aquarius, or Pluto's going to be in Aquarius. Uranus is still in Taurus, kind of more or less covered that, because now I'm just going from how I wrote it on the chart, because I did Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Pluto, Uranus, Lilith, Saturn, Neptune, Mercury, Earth, Moon, Sun, South Node, North Node. So within that code, I went from Uranus 11, Lilith 10, Saturn 8, Neptune 7, Mercury 5, Earth 4, Moon 2, Sun 1, South Node, and the North Node. But on the bottom, I start off with Mars 9, Venus 6, Jupiter 3, Pluto 0, Uranus 11. And then I go, so we could, if we start off with Mars 9 or whatever, we're kind of like, we're intuitively connecting with the moon, and then we're making a path into how we could ultimately feel for the moon, And the moon and the sun, it's in this if I'm not mistaken, it's in the gate of shock, the shock to be alive, the shock to come alive. It's alive, some type of Frankenstein theme. Something is alive, Sun in Aries, sun in gate 51, moon in gate 51, moon, the I Ching gate 51 is shock in the Aries constellation. So it's the shock to becoming alive, a unique, because Mars is also like kind of like, it's its own unique shocking of like, how the human is having a new evolution, and how the landscape of the collective landscape is having a new evolution. So it's shocking to that, and that could aspect to Neptune and Pisces. So some of us could be feeling like even some type of like disappointment, or just being kind of uniquely emotional, or like sad, or like, kind of just downtrodden probably. And we have to fight these things, we need sleep. If we don't get enough sleep, then the energy of grumpiness could come. The 7 dwarfs, we have to give those 7 dwarfs remedies. The 7 dwarves, the 7 planets, they need remedies. And somehow they became a material, quote unquote, earcon, end quote, of something that is just a new transition of what they could have been something else of. Because the planets are like, unique celestial objects of something of something of a new aspect of what they could have been differently. The planets could have their own like multidimensionality, most respectively, and that's like an understatement too, right? So it's like So it's like no choice because I'm just explaining what's already happening, you know? So within Mars being in Pisces, Venus being in Aries, we're getting Venus is kind of like the feminine caretaker of the matrix. So the feminine caretaker of the matrix, she's like kind of caring for like the warrior. Like this feminine leader is kind of like nourishing and nurturing the warrior spirit, Venus and Aries. So there's this general nurturing going on, and Mercury being in Aries, we're getting the scoop for that. So it's like it's a very advanced, unique evolution. So Venus being in Aries, getting like finding joy in the work to like be with the human evolution, being real present, being uniquely present. Because I put Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and how Venus and Jupiter aspect, first and second house, and the Sun and Mars, or the sun being in the first house, it's kind of double exalting the first house, because the first house, the sun is exalting the first house, and that sun of the exalting the first house is in Aries, the natural feminine first house. So that natural feminine first house, Aries constellation, is in the first house, masculine aspect, the sun. So there's this feminine and masculine first house and this feminine and masculine sun connecting. So so Venus being in Aries is fulfilling the desires of, of how Mars wants to have the human, and how Mars is like is depositing himself in Pisces. It's also having this harmony within, how the predecessors have created themselves within all the different water cycles that the predecessors and the celestial objects have went through. Pisces. Uranus being in Taurus, seeing how the spiritual world adapts, how the original divine intelligence is beyond the artificial intelligence, respectively. Lilith and Virgo, Lilith is just like, it could be our beast in balance, and our beast in balance, Lilith cusp Virgo cusp Libra. It's like the opportunity is here. It's like this is the opportunity of a lifetime, but we're taking it for deep grantedness. And on a casual level, we could be getting like just neutral help. Health could be brought to our shadow, Lilith and Virgo. Saturn and Pisces, it getting the scoop, the transformation taking the simulation, going through a new deep change within, the different layers of heaven, Neptune and Pisces. Mercury and Aries, kind of like a unique super soldiers there. Earth and Libra, us being kind of like, our human, unconscious self, our physical self, our innocent self is barely preparing for this change, this journey. The Earth, the planet Earth being in Libra, it's barely starting the journey for change, because Libra is all about like the change of evolution. And the unconscious Earth, our human unconscious connected to the Earth, it's in the Libra constellation. So us like barely starting the journey of the whole new year, the whole fucking new year, Aries new moon. We're barely start. This is the first new moon of the astrological new year. So 365 days from now, it would have concluded this grand human unconscious physical self to start the journey of change. Earth in Libra, Moon in Aries, and Sun in Aries conjunct. And somehow the North Node and the South Node are respectively conjunct to the Sun and the Moon in their own unique ways. So the Sun and the Moon, we're being amped up and we're activating ourselves to so the Sun and the Moon and the Earth have unique connections with the North Node and the South Node right now. So we're so on an unconscious level, our traumas and our reflections could come up because South Node is in Libra and Earth is in Libra. So we could just be processing traumas and they could be flushed out through change and assistance through the help of Libra being in a higher octave frequency. It could help us through the change. South Node in Libra, just seeing how we've always survived through change, who's been there for us to help us survive, and the people who haven't been there to help us survive, paradoxically, helped us to survive, to see how we could be uniquely resilient and how our enemies make us who we are, for the challenges that they give us. South Node in Libra. Our enemies are making us who we are. South Node Libra, Earth Libra. We've always known that, whether we want to dwell on it or not. The body and its healing and its traumas never forget. Earth in Libra, South Node in Libra. And that just, the traumas being unpacked and processed. The Sun and the Moon conjunct North Node. Us having, the solar system collective ego, and, the Earth's, and then the Earth's moon, this nearby, the Earth having its own moon beacon. Us having a whole new feeling, and this whole new feeling, whatever we're feeling, is where we're going. Because the moon and the sun is conjunct North Node. So whatever we feel, it's kind of foreshadowing it, and it's a clue to, how this emotional feeling of just where we end up based on how the sun is in a certain season within the solar system and the planet, the start of spring, we're having this action to adapt to spring, Sun in Aries, Sun having the action to adapt to spring, the start of the new year, acting on what we're going to do for first house through 12th house, because the sun, the new moon in Aries, the full moon is going to be in some region of Libra and Scorpio. So that's going to play out for the next 6 months, right? Or 7 months, right? Because sun and moon is in Aries. And the moon is going to travel from Aries to Libra within this new kicker offers starter of how we're just in the new moon, right? So we're in the new moon. This new moon is going to reflect from how the new sun is going to change. Aries is going to have a new sun. A month from now, there's going to be a new, or like in 2 weeks from now, the sun and the moon are going to have a new sun and a new moon in Taurus. So the moon, when the moon goes into Aries to Taurus within this, within this moon phase, that's going to build upon next month, 4 to 6 to 8 weeks in the region when the new sun and the new moon is going to be in Taurus. So the first house, so the sun in Aries, it's kicking off this new moon phase. It's kicking off its phases for the next 6 to 7 months. So we're acting on how we're going to adapt to, the finished product of material creations, sun in Aries. We're having a feeling about that. And as we're having a feeling about that feeling and that action plan, the North Node, the magnetic Rahu's head, the ghost beacon. I call the North Node and the South Node symbolical ghost beacons, because it's an energy, Rahu and Ketu. It's a certain capping of the feminine Admin Cadman body. It's the feminine Admin Cadman body's shadow sun creation, Rahu and Ketu. And although they're not literal physical objects in the dream world, they're a different representation. So we're going towards this physical, counterpart of the feminine Admin Cadman body, North Node and South Node, Rahu and Ketu, you know, the mate of a certain particular feminine admin cadmin body. So Sun, Moon, and North Node is in Aries. So we're acting on, we're just acting and feeling and going towards within the acting and feeling to the shock of life. Gate 51, the shocks of life. We're starting off this whole astrological new year to, like, you know, first house. The sun and the moon are in the first house, and then the moon is going to travel into, you know, eventually Taurus, something of a second house. So it's going to go from first to seventh house. So this new movie is going to be like first to seventh house. We're going to start the action plan and the feelings towards who are we. And then second house, how we're relating to the technological changes. Third house, how we're going to like feel and act towards how we can communicate with that. And then the fourth house, we're going to see how it applies to our family. The fifth house, it's going to see where we're at within our human character and our human evolution and our inner child. The sixth house, how we have our own holistic health care plan within that. And then the seventh house, finally seeing the results and the fruits of how the human is adapting through radical change, and seeing how day turns to night and night turns to day, and how we use day and night to rest from change and then wake up back to change. That would be something of the full moon, you know, like how we're mastering change. So I pretty much gave you a full moon reading too, and then and then 6 months from now, that's gonna fold in on itself, because once 6 months from now, once the moon and the sun are in Libra, that's gonna be kicking off the second half of the transition through this solar system that we're in. Because spring and summer is something of like a unique foundation for fall and winter, and they fold in on each other within its own solar system day and its own solar system night. So this was an intuitive one. Somehow I pulled it off. And then this one I might start with the Cash App too, you know, because like this is an exchange of energies, you know. Mars, you know, it would probably, like, some precision. Mars could finish precision, you know, because Mars is finishing shit. Mars is capping shit. He's shocking itself with, I'm individuating this first. Mars is, I'm the first of this creation, and that connecting to the different multidimensionalities of Mars, and us, like, we're using that chakra within us to kind of use it for our own human self, our own earth self and sun self, unconscious to how the sun comes from a unique part of Uranus, and how the soul is even a thing, you know. The sun and Uranus being in the earth body, for us to be our own human of individuation. Let me see what more notes. There's 6 lines in the hexagram. I'll go through those 6 lines on a different video. There's other notes regarding HD that I'm not going to say in this, because I wrote notes on a page and I didn't read all the notes. And I kind of gave you the spiel on the whole thing, you know. Yeah. Becoming braver, becoming more resilient, you know, seeing and finding your purpose, you know. Like, you know, there's a fight for life, you know. So finding your purpose within the mechanics of life. Mars and Pisces. the 12th house in the first house in the feminine admin cadmin body to the masculine admin cadmin body. Like a new being, like different beings are coming. Like the masculine admin cadmin body, it's some type of a mission. That's what it is, and like from that emission, there's something that's being spoken, some type of acoustic resonance field within, within how Mars and Earth, and it creates itself in a certain Saturn matrix. It hosts how the human becomes a human. It's spoken through the word, like Mercury being the throat chakra. It's it's kind of having a different finished product of how a human could be animated, Some type of final vocalization is happening through Mercury to animate a certain body. Like this final spell is being casted through Mercury to create a being, Mercury being the throat chakra, what I say, some part of what I say and what I express through my vocals. It's creating a unique something within a certain combination of tones and frequencies. Mercury having a unique code of tones and frequencies to help complete the human body. Mercury being this throat individuated aspect, and that individuated aspect, Mercury of God, self-identified itself as separate from God. God allowed that, and that piece, which is God and isn't God, is creating some type of throat chakra within a new human being or a new solar system or a new just a new kind of like human beings, supreme being. And Mercury kind of creating a body pretty much to bring some like to bring some precision to the conclusive statements. So yeah, that's it, guys. Becoming braver. And there's some other notes, like I said, that I didn't bring up because I wrote notes on the paper. So yeah, I think that's it, guys. Because I got through all the planets. I didn't really necessarily go in depth on how all of them aspect, but this was an intuitive message. So I did Aries through the houses very swiftly. I read some notes. I read the order of the planets, and I kind of put the heart into it to some degree, because it's the new moon, and may this connect to other people's, heart chakra. May we align our heart, as the predecessors say, to like, some type of tribe and some type of other, positive thought current or whatever. And even, and to God or whatever, So I did this reading because it was like, this was Aries in new moon, right? New moon Aries. So this was new moon Aries reading to really kind of like have energetic guidance for the next 6 months. So this is 6 months right here. 6 months of like, so this is like the intellectual foundation for like the next 6 months. Thank you guys. Have a great day.